This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
This is why the Nkuhuma Pride is such a firm favourite.
It's Kinky Tail.
He just looks ready for a fight. This is still her territory.
The Evoker boys are here to stay.
How insane was that? Well, good afternoon everybody and Happy New Year from our very first edition of Safari Lives for 2019. You can see because it's the first day I've decided to put on a new bow tie for all of you, which I will reveal as to why I'm wearing this particular very heavy, very uncomfortable bow tie a little bit later. Now, my name is Tristan. Put that down for a second. On camera with me is Senzo, and we are coming to you live from South Africa, where we are going to show you, and Kenya actually, and we're going to show you all about the cat characters that we've had over the past week. It's a time that we're going to delve into everything that has happened and catch you all up on the epicness that has taken place over the last 7 days. So it promises to be a very good one. Remember that we do need you to interact with us in order for this to be a success, and so #SafariLive on Twitter or @FC on the YouTube chat. Now, I was saying that we've had a fantastic 7 days to kick off things in 2019, so take a look at just what's been happening and where everybody has been moving about.
Good afternoon and welcome to this afternoon's Safari Lives. Can you believe the very first one of the new year? And we are sitting with the first loving couple of our year, an Evoker male and an Nkuhuma lioness. Now, my name is Jamie, and this afternoon Sebastian is on camera with me, having made a triumphant return to work just in time.
Yeah, thank you.
Our lovely lion couple are taking a little break from their amorous activities of the past 2 or 3 days and are resting up, regaining some energy. That is the way of things when it comes to lion mating. They've been mating for about 3 or 4 days now. So at this point, we are slowly reaching the end of their romance. It's quite a quick one in the lion world. And this lioness will very soon be hoping to rejoin her pride. And she can do that quite quickly, actually, if she knows where they are. I know where they are. They're not far from where we're sitting right here at this exact moment on Djuma. They are right up in the top northwestern corner at a place called Sandy Patch. So probably about, as the crow flies, probably about a mile and a bit off in that direction. Now, he, of course, will not be terribly keen on letting her go, particularly as this male coalition has only recently established themselves here. So they're going to be trying to keep hold of the lionesses for as long as they can. This is a novel experience for them. So this is really their first experience in being proper territorial males. It's possible that in their young lives, in the past, they've had opportunities to mate, but they would have been sneaky opportunities when dominant males were absent. Now that they've established themselves in Buffelshoek, Djuma, and the surrounding areas, this really is a time to learn all about what it means to be a dominant coalition out here. Now, being a dominant coalition, of course, means fighting off rivals. It also means making sure that they stay well fed. And one particular animal that stays well out of reach of the Nkuhumas and the Evokers is a buffalo, which David has up in the Masai Mara.
We do apologise for that audio difficulty. You are with Patrick now, and we have Craig on camera. So we are searching for Hosanna at the moment. I haven't seen the little chief for a very long time, and I am on the search. So please help me out by sending in your questions and your comments. Hashtag SafariLive on Twitter or the YouTube chat stream. So last I heard, Hosanna was heading west out of Torchwood towards us, which is a good thing because when we can actually see him. So I'm just going to head over to Chi the Cut Line, which runs along the eastern boundary, and see if I can pick up on perhaps a track or two. That was definitely not leopard tracks there. So I even wore my lucky shorts today in hopes to get Hosanna, and I played the song Little Chief earlier today by Xavier Rudd. So all the luck is heading my way, I'm hoping. It has been pretty wet, so the roads have been wiped clean of all tracks, which does make it easier and harder, depends on which way you want to look at it. I am going to continue my search for Hosanna. In the meantime though, let's go back up to the Masai Mara, where I think David has fixed his audio issues.
Hello everyone, and Jumbo from the Mara Triangle in Kenya, and a warm welcome to our Sunset Drive, which should be our first Safari Lives show for this year 2019, and the Buffalo is just there welcoming all of you. And my name is David, and with me on camera today is Bungay. Bungay, good afternoon. Bungay, any news for the viewers on Safari Live today? Bungay is promising nothing but action. Pretty warm afternoon today, 24 degrees Celsius and 75 degrees Fahrenheit right here in the Mara Triangle in Kenya. And you can tell the warmth of the day because it looks a bit shimmering there, and as much as that buffalo there keeps flicking his ears, it's not because of the flies, maybe it's more or less because of it's a bit uncomfortable because of the heat of the day. I'm sure the vehicles in the background there is coming to join us to see this one of the most dangerous animals that we got in Africa, the African Cape Buffalo. Now look at the beauty of the Mara. So we're giving you an angle where you can have what Bungay likes calling 2-shot or 3-shot, a tree, a buffalo, and in the background you can see all the way to the horizon. Nice clouds. We had a rather warmer day than it is now, and at one point we thought it might rain, but we do not see now those signs of rain anymore. And I'm sure, as my friends already told you, comments, questions usually gives a lot of joy, and we like interacting with you in real time using hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. That boy tells you it's warm and he wants to slow down, and what he's doing is basically rechewing the grass that he might have eaten earlier, that we call to regurgitate, and then he's chewing cud, very typical with cows. And I'm calling him a boy by virtue of his size and the massiveness of his horns. You can see such huge horns, really dripping with the saliva of it, helping to digest what he's chewing. Well, talking of big buffaloes, I'm sure my friend Tristan also won't talk of other big animals too.
I was about to say, David, I was hoping you weren't going to call me a big animal. I know it's been the festive season and there's an extra layer that's been put on, but, you know, at the end of the day, we're trying our best not to be big animals. Right, now you've seen that I'm standing here, and instead of wearing this ridiculously heavy bow tie, we've decided it would be a better prop for me to kind of lean on. And basically what we're going to discuss today is those that are absolute giants. Now, this particular bone is part of a leg. It's only half of the kind of leg of an elephant, and so we're going to be delving into the world of our pachyderms during the course of this afternoon. It promises to be a fun one. I'm pretty sure that we're going to have a really epic time of it, and hopefully you guys will get involved and ask all the elephant questions that you possibly have. It's a subject that can go on for hours and hours and hours, and we know that if it's not leopards, then I like to spend a lot of time with these guys. Now we're going to leave this rather heavy bone outside. I say it's heavy, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But what we're going to kind of do is leave that outside, and we're going to head into the tent so that we can just show you a few differences that we've got when it comes to ellies. One of the major questions that we often get asked here is that what is the difference between African and Asian elephants? And so basically the difference between the two is I've basically drawn a small little thing. These are my little sort of what would the word be? I don't know, little drawings that I've done, and they are not very good, so you have to bear with me. I think they're better than what James does, but we'll have a little look anyway. But basically what we've got essentially is we've got our African elephants that are in this particular kind of side, and then we've got Asian elephants on this, and these are the differences that we can use to identify both African and Asian elephants. And first off, we'll start with the kind of ears. And so while I've drawn it on here, I actually pulled up a picture that's going to be much easier for all of you to actually see. So if we have a look basically on this particular picture, you'll see that we've got the African elephant on the left hand side, Asian elephant on the right hand side, and you can immediately see that the ear structure of these particular animals is very, very different. So on the African elephant here, we've got this ear that is very large, and often people say shape of Africa, just to kind of get it in their mind, much bigger, quite a lot longer than what you see on the Asian elephant, which has this much smaller kind of ear over there. So that's the kind of first major difference. When you see that already, you can kind of tell the difference between the two. The next thing that you use quite regularly is the trunk. Now, we often talk about the trunks of elephants and how they're an incredible tool for these guys to be able to not only smell, but to feed, and to even defend themselves. But there's a very distinct difference between the two of them, and this diagram probably shows it quite nicely, is that on the African elephant over here, the end of the trunk has two sort of, what would you call it, little fingers that come off. Now those two fingers are actually quite sort of manipulating. They can actually both move, and they can pinch and hold things with that. If you look on the Asian elephant side, you'll notice that they've got a long one that kind of comes off, but nothing at the bottom. All right, so they've only got the one that can kind of wrap around a little bit, and what you will notice with theirs is that is slightly longer than what you see over there. And there's a few other little interesting kind of differences between the two of them, which we'll get into a little bit later. But in the meantime, though, let's send you quickly across to Jamie with the mating pair. I wonder if they've decided to wake up and indulge us with a bout of mating.
Everybody, big and small, needs a friend. That made a lot more sense when the butterfly was still sitting on the line, but that's just the way things go with live safaris. Things change at the drop of a hat. But our lovely Avoca male had a butterfly joining him, which must be slightly ticklish, but also pleasant for him, because the Nkuhuma lionesses are at this point not really interested in giving the Avoca males the time of day. They'll mate with them, they have to. It's part of this whole peace process that has to happen when a male takeover occurs. But for now, they're not particularly inclined towards being affectionate where the males are concerned. The males spell trouble, the lionesses know it, and it's going to take some time for them to settle in. But the settling in process has started and continues to occur as the Avocas establish themselves even further on Djuma. The Avoca males have returned to Djuma. And they have wasted no time in making their presence known. Their golden eyes and gorgeous manes making them the model bachelor pair. With the Nkuhumas close by, it was only a matter of time before they crossed paths. While these young lovers continued under the watchful eyes of another female, the other male wallowed in his loneliness. with food and comfort catered for them by the Nkuhumas, these Avoca boys are sure to stick around for a while. They are gorgeous boys, aren't they? They really, truly are. And what fascinates me with a process like this is just how being dominant and being in charge of an area and that massive boost in testosterone really changes the development of a male lion. They've gone from males with sort of scraggly manes and beards, looking a little bit like teenage boys, to fully grown, magnificent lions in their prime. Now, just to clarify, this is not the same mating pair that we had yesterday on the Sunset Safari. There are, in fact, two. There is the skittish Avoca male with the mohawk. He's actually the one that we were with yesterday, who gave us a little bit of a growl when the female decided to lead him right up to the side of the car. He is up in Buffelshoek, so he's about a mile away from where we're sitting now. This is a different male. So over the course of the last few days, there's actually been two different mating pairs. So the Avocas have been established in this area for, I would say, at least 2 months, probably 3, because I have no sense of the passage of time, so it's probably safer to assume it's been longer than I think it has, which means that at this point, these matings are increasingly likely to actually result in a pregnancy. So, in another 3 or 4 months' time, depending upon whether or not they are successful, we can look forward to little cuddly Nkuhuma cubs. Yet more cats to add to our list of beloved characters. It's not all about our beloved cats, however, as Tristan is going to discuss with you and the wonderful pachyderms. Never mind, you're not going anywhere. You will, at some point, talk pachyderms with Tristan, but you can't right now. I'm terribly sorry. It's the gremlins. They don't want you to hear anything about them. Lydia, sorry about that. Did you ask if there were 3 boys? Did I get that correctly? Or am I making that up? Yes. Lydia, there are 3 boys. There absolutely are 3 boys. But remember that once established, male lion coalitions don't necessarily stay together the entire time. So they'll often rejoin each other. They will bond together when it is a time to go out on a territorial patrol. And I would say that in the beginning part of their establishment, they are together more often than in the later stages where they feel more secure. But when lions are mating like this, he doesn't want to tolerate any other male company around, even if it is one of his beloved coalition mates. So he will spend time with her almost exclusively on his own. So there is a third Avoca male knocking about somewhere. I'm still getting to know the 3 of them as well as I knew the Birmingham boys, so it might take a little bit of time before I recognize each and every one individually, although I think I've got it down pretty much. The one with the mohawk yesterday was pretty unmistakable now. His image is burned into my mind. Quite a scarred individual. This one over here has a perfect little nose. Perfectly pink nose and less scars. He's also slightly older. And if I remember correctly, the third one has a split on his nose. He's dreaming. Look, he's twitching. Although that might actually be flies, to be fair. And remember, you can send through your questions on #SafariLive on Twitter. So while you think of any questions that you would like to ask about our lovely lions, off you pop across to Gigi in the Masai Mara. Gigi, I'm handing them over into your more than capable hands.
Hopefully we are going to get a new generation with the Nkuhumas after all the mating goes on and those females conceive. Now the distance I'm looking at there is showing some signs of rain, which I initially thought I was right when I said we don't see rains coming. But either way, that direction is an area I call the Sausage Republic, where apparently we got 2 females there that are pregnant in that particular pride that they call the sausage tree. Now, we do not know when those cubs will be dropped by those 2 females. And looking at Jamie's lionesses, hopefully we are talking of, and hopefully we hope that they are going to conceive and they are going to get some cubs in the future. Well, that is the weather here. We have been having the short rains, which had given us the second break, or the second week rather. They have given us a break on the second week without any rains. And looking at that particular direction that I love, going of the Sausage Republic, the last week they showed us what they are capable, and it's always nice watching what transpired with this particular pride. The short rains have left the grass green and long in the Mara Savannah. Lush vegetation, water-filled ponds, and thriving herbivores will mean the sausage tree pride will have abundant prey to keep the cubs well fed. Kingtail's belly is still swollen and could give us New Year's joy when her new additions to the family arrive soon. In the meantime, the older cubs will play, enjoying the bounty of nature, and totally clueless of their coming cousins. And that must be perfect. So we're thinking, as much as it looks a bit cloudy there, nothing gonna happen. And that pride, of all the many prides in the Mara Triangle, remains my favorite pride for so many reasons. How they hunt, having 3 cubs, a set of 2 4 months, 1 3 months old, and the way they're able to bring down buffaloes, it always excites me. Well, we just had some giraffes that just passed away, and as much as they pass in the wrong direction, we have some ellis now, and they're just at the very base of what we call the Oloror escarpment. Robert, how are you? And you'd like to know whether we can project the number of cubs for a lioness first litter. I'll tell you what my guess is. What would happen is, out of experience from it, 9 out of 10 cubs, 9 out of 10 baths, or 9 out of 10 liters, I have always counted 1 cub. So, Robert, my guess is, of course, depending on the lineage of the lioness, or the genetical setup of the lioness, but in general, Romet, from what I've found here in the Mara, for first litter, for the first bath of a lioness, is always 1 cub. So that's just a prediction. Occasionally, Romet, we see 2, but I would say 9 out of 10 times we have always seen 1 cub. So there's a particular female in the sausage pride. We haven't seen it for the last few days because we think she's just about to pop her cubs, and I gathered from a friend when she first littered she had 1 cub. So I would say for me it's 1 out of maybe possible 4. I'm sure the lionesses will get 4 maximum, so for the first litter my guess would be 1. Well, there's a particular moving on, there's a pride of lions that lives here where we are that is called the Olololos, and either 1 female or 2 got cubs, and I saw them the other day. So what I want to do is to move in that direction because they're still very young and the mother doesn't want to bring them out. So I want to swing that area and see if they will come out, because the temperatures have gone down a little bit and it's not very hot. I know where they are. I've been there a few times, but it's only of the many times I've been there, I've seen them once. So remember, again, ladies and gentlemen, should you have any questions or comments about the drive, we like hearing from you. Please send them through #SafariLive on Twitter. And let's see how things go. If you see those cubs, I'm still planning to be going to the Sausage Republic in the next few days. It will have made my Monday afternoon. We'll take you down to Pat, who is trying to look for the chief.
Well, no Hosanna as of yet, but as we came to the end of the road we were patrolling, we noticed in this little pan here that a hyena decided to come down and take a dip. How good is that? So it actually looks like there is a nick missing from the ear there. It may be Corky even. Maybe the matriarch bathing away there. Definitely does look like her. We haven't seen actually Corky or Pretty in quite some time. Well, over a week now, I think. So if this is her, that would be an awesome sighting. And how good is this? Oh wow. I'm very jealous of that hyena right now. It's not a boiling hot day. It's 29 degrees Celsius. So, you know, it's not overly hot, but it's very muggy, very sticky. And as rank as that water does look, I'm sure it's very refreshing for this hyena, who can very well deal with lots of parasites and other things of that sort. Sorry, Roslyn, what was that question? I just didn't catch it. Can hyenas swim? Well, you are looking at it right now. So they aren't great swimmers, but they do have the ability to swim. But obviously this waterhole here is not deep enough, so it's just taking a nice wallow, a good little cool off. Awesome. Great sighting for my debut on SafariLive SSSS. Well, let's leave this guy to relax. I might continue my search for Hosanna, but in the meantime, let's see what the little chief has been up to this week. The little chief started off the year with some much needed R&R. He's clearly still in holiday mode as he lounged about on some of nature's finest furniture. Before moving to a shady spot to bliss out for the rest of the day. Taking up his trademark Hosanna nap position. Well, the hyena did just get out. I'm just going to reverse a little bit so we can see it. And the more I'm looking at it, the more convinced I am that it is Corky. So, where it's heading now, I have no idea. We haven't really been noticing them at any dens lately. So all the regular den sites we've been checking all week and just haven't really produced many results. Now it is heading east right now into Torchwood, so unfortunately we can't follow it to see where it is going. But, oh well, let's continue the search for Hosanna. There was no tracks at all on Cheetah Cut Line, so I'm just going to keep on moving it down the southern boundary and check up through the dams. I know Hosanna is quite often seen around twin dams. Or Jamie, it is Corky. Thank you for confirming that ID for me. I was pretty sure it was Corky. So awesome, awesome. I'm glad we got to see her again on this Monday afternoon. Now, hyenas actually do also tend to follow around leopards. So it might almost be worth going back up, because I'm just looking backwards now and it seems like Corky's heading upwards, north, rather than the original easterly direction she was heading. Well, I follow up this active hyena. I'm going to send you back over to Jamie, who has a flat cat.
Back to Jamie. Back to Jamie. That's what they call me in Kenya. Back to Jamie with one very, very sleepy male lion. And since he is so sleepy, it gives me a chance to just break some news to you, which isn't 100% confirmed, but I feel as though I do have to share. There has been a hyena den found right on the northern boundary of Little Gowrie, which, for those of you that know the geography of this area, that is the southern boundary of Djuma, and it is probably about, it's less than a mile from the old hyena den on Philemon's cut line. So there is a distinct possibility that they have actually moved off Djuma, which could be terribly, terribly sad for us if that is in fact the case. We have requested photographs from the guide that let us know about that move. So just to keep you informed about that, something deeply distressing to contemplate. Luckily, we've got happiness in the form of lions on Djuma. But well done to Pat for finding and identifying Corky, who we've been looking for days. The Nkuhuma lioness is fast asleep. It's quite warm here, it's quite muggy. It's been a cloudy, cool few days. But I can completely understand the fact that these lions are not inclined to do much except apparently dream and twitch. I think she's twitching because of that fly or something crawling around on her cheek fur. It's very close to her whiskers. And as you know, cats' whiskers are hypersensitive to any kind of a pressure sensation. So that's probably why she's twitching in the way that she is. Flies looking for moisture, and in most cases, stable flies biting in search of blood. Now, flies are something that everything has to contend with out here, from the tiniest steenbok to the largest of the large.
I don't think anybody enjoys having flies hovering about them. I certainly know I wouldn't want to have flies. In fact, I have one right now. Let's get rid of that. I don't have a nice long tail like an elephant does with lots of hair on the end that is able to kind of flick it away. Now, just now we were talking about differences between African and Asian elephants, and I was saying there was a few other differences, and so essentially it was just the head that I was going to talk about and the kind of sizes of them. So Asian elephant much smaller, and the head has got two bulbous kind of points on it rather than the single one. But you know, while we spend time out here a lot of the time, and we sit with cats regularly, we know the lions very well, we know the hyenas, we know the leopards. Very seldom in many lodges will there be certain kind of elephants that attract too much attention. But here at Djuma, we have a few elephants that we know incredibly well and that we spend time with and we try and actively look for. And the first of which is a very, very special little elephant that unfortunately had a mishap at some point in life, and she has got a trunk that has made her quite famous amongst all of us. Now, basically what you'll see is that this is the elephant that we're talking about. It's called Short Trunk, and the reason that she's called Short Trunk is essentially that. So Emma, if you can just pause it there as she lifts her trunk up for me, and we'll be able to show you. So essentially what I was saying earlier is that elephants typically will have two fingers on the end of their trunk, and you can see with Short Trunk that unfortunately for her, that kind of trunk itself has been sort of, what's the word for it? It's been cut short. Now, what this injury is from, it could most likely is probably from a snare. Now, snares, for those of you who don't know what they are a wire trap that is put out by subsistence poachers. So those are people that are really desperate for food more than anything else, and they'll go after things like little impalas, duikers, steenbok, and the likes. And so they put out these wire snares, which is a loop that tightens upon going into it. And so she's probably put her trunk through that snare is tightened, and it's unfortunately the tip of it has then been lost. Now, if we just roll it forward a little bit for me, Emma, so there, that's a good example. Now, she's very, very lucky in that her trunk, if you look at the bottom part where those little water droplets are coming off, you'll notice that there's a little kind of protrusion. And so the way her trunk actually healed after this horrific injury was that it got a little kind of protrusion at the end, and so she's actually, much like the Asian elephant, got a little finger to work with. And subsequent to that, I've watched her a lot of times as she's got the muscle is kind of on the top side now, starting to almost bend a little bit, so she can actually grab little things, which has made her chances of survival that much more. The other thing that's good about this is that you can see in relation to where her feet is that the trunk, while it is cut off, is definitely still long enough that she's able to drink. We can see in this clip, we can carry on rolling it now, Emma. You can see in this clip that she's absolutely able to drink and is kind of able to get the water that she needs and still do all the things that a normal elephant would do, like dust bathing, and that's because that trunk is long enough for her to be able to get down, to be able to feed and to find water and dust. Now you can see when she moves there, so sorry Emma, if we can just go back slightly there. I know we don't want to do too much. much. Go a little bit further back, and then and pause. Go back a little bit for me. Sorry. There. Right. As she comes up now with this trunk, just watch very, very carefully. If we can just roll it very slowly as she comes up, you see how she uses her trunk a little bit differently to others. Now, most of the others would have used the end of the trunk to pick up those grasses and to be able to hold them in the mouth, whereas she almost forms a little cup where she breaks it, and then she slowly pushes it up, and actually out the side of the trunk, pushes it into her mouth in a very quick maneuver that allows her to be able to get things like grass in. It's very, very difficult for her to do grass, particularly because it's very pliable, it's very soft and light, and so, you know, wind and those kind of things make it tricky for her to actually get her trunk round. And also because of the muscular nature of that trunk, it's very hard for her to actually grip it like she could a thicker branch. And so she quickly pushes it in, and she's then able to eat all kinds of grasses and forbs, which is absolutely incredible, particularly for me. I think it's amazing that she's able to do it. There you can see her kind of drinking in the background, so that's her in the back, and this is the rest of the herd that often accompanies her. So this particular little herd is the 4 of them, which hopefully we'll see shortly. You can see she's got a little baby, and this little one has grown quite a bit since we first started to see it. There you go, you can see it's starting to get larger now already, and we can just kind of see that she's very good at mothering, and amazing to me that not only has she been able to have this horrific injury, but she's managed to survive and now have a little baby that you can see is full of joy. And this herd, like I say, has got a very special part of our kind of makeup here in Djuma. Everybody loves spending time with them, and it's probably because not only is she injured in this way, but also that she is such a small kind of grouping that we've got, and you know, they only the 4 of them, sometimes accompanied by a 5th individual. There's a young bull that sometimes follows them around, and the 5 of them do walk together, and she's really very, very special. I love spending time with her. Interestingly enough, we have seen her join with other herds before, and particularly a very large herd that hung around here for a while. It wasn't Fang's herd, we will get into a little bit later, but there was a large herd that was here for a while, and she used to kind of go in and out and in and out, and so she does obviously have relatives within this area, but most of the time she's just the 4 of them that walk around, and accompanied by what I assume is her daughter, and then the offspring that they've had, and obviously her little tiny one that she has at the moment. But isn't it incredible to think that she's lost her most vital source? It's like, imagine somebody coming and cutting off both of your hands and disfiguring your nose, and then you trying to kind of live life like that without anybody actually doing the healing for you. So to overcome that is really quite special. Now, Rosalind, you're asking about how many bones elephants have. I'm actually not 100% sure on the exact number of bones, which I'll find it just now and we'll be able to double check. But the thing about their bone structure, which we can talk about now, is the difference between most animals and them. So because of the extreme weight that they have, there's a few things that they've got to kind of change. And so their leg bones, which is the one that I was showing you earlier, that's a femur for an elephant, that leg bone is incredibly heavy, much heavier than what you're going to see from any other kind of bone out in normal antelope kind of legs. And the reason why is that bone is not, there's no marrow inside there. It's completely solid. It's able to then withstand this huge weight that bears down on the legs. And their head structure and their skull is very different in many respects, because it's not solid bone on top. It's actually honeycombed. So it's got little kind of holes in it. And funnily enough, we actually have the skull with us. So I want to show you now. We've been talking about died when we last, I can't even remember when it was just before I think I went to the Mara with Brenty, when we had that big Ellie bull that died down near Twin Dam. So here's the skull. We've finally gone and fetched it, and I want to show you guys exactly what I mean about the honeycomb. Now, if Senzo can come here, so you can give it an idea of how big this head is. Now, if you have a look inside here, this is exactly what I'm referring to. Can you see how there's kind of little bubbles and sort of little ridges and holes that run inside there? Now, if you had to cross-section this entire elephant skull, you'll notice that that's how it's built. There'll be little spaces like this, and then a little bit of extra bone, and it almost looks a bit like a Aero chocolate. So for those of you who don't know what that is, it's basically a chocolate that they pump air into, and it's got these kind of big bubbles in it. And if I show you kind of on the edges here, there's also a good example of it. So over here, if you look in the cracks that have formed, you can actually see quite clearly that there's big gaps inside of the skull. And basically what that does is it reduces the amount of weight on this elephant's head. If this was solid bone like the legs, it would be too heavy for these guys to be able to lift up, to feed off all the various trees and branches and things that they do, and they wouldn't really be able to kind of walk around as much as they do. So it would just be far too heavy. And I mean, you can see the size of this. To give you an idea, I'm 6'2", and this is a young bull elephant. This is not a big bull elephant by any stretch of the imagination. And this is about half my size. Just the head, and this is the upper part of the head. The lower jaw is over here. So that would have added an extra kind of dimension to this whole process. And you can see that that would have been kind of at the bottom. So what's interesting though with all of this is that the lower jaw is different. So the lower jaw is not quite like the skull that is honeycombed. The lower jaw is a lot more solid, and the reason for that is because these guys eat quite big things. I mean, we know that they put in big branches, big fruits like monkey orange and those kind of things go in there sometimes, and so they need a heavy skull to be able to basically push up and then grind those things down and actually be able to squash the fruit up and to be able to kind of eat it. And you can see these are the teeth, which we'll get into a little bit later. But Rosalind, hopefully you kind of enjoyed seeing a bit of the bone structure. I'll let you know exactly how many bones. I'll quickly have a look and just 100% confirm. But in the meantime, though, we're going to send you back up to the Masai Mara with David, and I wonder what he's got on his side.
Yes, Tristan, I think you're right. And we saw some ellies from a distance, and I think it was a cow and her calf from a distance. And what I decided to do is to move on and see if they could get more elephants and maybe much closer. The Mara is good for elephants because unlike Juma, we can see long distances, and it's easy to see elephants, and that's the big difference in terms of the habitats of the Mara Triangle and Juma. Well, early this year, or let's say the very first day of the year, or the 31st night, maybe in North America, I was very lucky to see some cats which, you know, were mating, and I'm sure if they or that female was able to conceive that particular night, it's going to give us babies that were made on the new year, because it was at the stroke of midnight of 2018 coming to 2019. Leopards are solitary cats. About the only time they are not alone is in the presence of a beautiful female, in estrus with possibilities of mating, or females with cubs. As we ushered in the new year, these two leopards shared their love with the whole world at the stroke of midnight. We are counting the days as we hope their love will suck cute bundles of joy in about 3 months' time. Well, ladies and gentlemen, how does that feel? Because personally, I was out in the bush and I was not looking at my clock, but the director who was in the office or who was directing us that day told me, you know what, that meeting took time exactly at midnight. So we are talking about 11:59, midnight-ish there. That was pretty special. And we're not very sure, but as Tristan said, that leopard could have been the shepherd's tree male. It's very possible. And in the Mara, we don't see as many leopards like we see in Juma. But when we see leopards here, for us, it's always exciting. And that particular morning, not seeing one, but two, was super special. And I would say it was the best gift for me for the year 2019. Above all, to see the mating. I'm not sure what to think. And Roshni, wow, I agree with you, Roshni. Wow, I will also say wow 2 times, because seeing a leopard in the Mara is always very good news for us, or very big news for us. Seeing Roshni, not 1 but 2, was super special. And seeing the mating, albeit for a couple of seconds maybe, that was super special. I don't know what, ladies and gentlemen, you think. Maybe I'd request you to send me one-word tweet, one-way tweet from that sighting, knowing it was sighting a leopard in the Mara, not 1 but 2, and seeing them mating. Tell me from that experience or that sighting you've just seen, #SafariLive, what do you think? But don't forget, that meeting happened at midnight. So we can roughly calculate if that female conceived in another 95 days, that particular female will be bringing us a cub or two. That was super special. Well, that happens once in a while. Personally, I was very surprised to see a leopard that particular day, and it was very big news. It's time for me now to look for some other animals, and as Tristan was saying, I could, if I'm lucky, get, oops, sorry Bungay, hold for yourself, some ellis, and as I said, the Mara is wonderful to spot elephants because it's very open, the savannah, and I can tell you from 2-3 kilometers you can see for some elephants from a distance. And I'm sure my friend Pat is working very hard to get a cut on of his own this Monday afternoon.
Of course, I'm working hard, David, always working hard. Good luck with your elephants. So, we did have some reports that, not Hasana, Tingana was around earlier on this afternoon in this area at this junction down here. We checked around there, there wasn't any tracks. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a wider search now around the area and just see if I can pick up on anything. Old Tingana, I haven't seen him for a while as well, but it's been longer since I've seen Hasana. So I obviously would prefer the little chief right now, but I'm always going to take Tingana any day of the week. Speaking of Tingana, why don't we check out his start to the new year. On a territorial patrol, the Duke was looking to satisfy his hunger pangs. Although concentrating deeply, shown by his twitching tail, Tingana was unsuccessful. Disgruntled, hot and hungry, the old boy decided to try somewhere a little more claustrophobic. This method of hunting proved to be both unconventional and unsuccessful. Looks like Tingana isn't quite ready to face his fear of the dark. A little bit more practice down holes, I think, for Tingana. Let's have a look at this waterbuck, eh? Just on the side of the road here. It's a big male, very big male. Well, not very big, but shoulder height, probably about 1.2 meters. And those big, beautiful horns. Now, something really interesting about the waterbuck here and the waterbuck in the Mara is that the waterbuck in the Mara don't actually have this. If we look to the rear end of the animal, we can see it's got a bit of a white circle there. That white line runs all the way around its rump. But it's actually absent in the Mara waterbuck. Now, why this is, I actually don't know. And I haven't actually humoured the thought too much until now. I wonder what it is. I know that they do use it for leading, for being able to recognise one another when you're in a bit of a thicker environment. So perhaps that's why. I mean, the Mara is a lot more open. This is very densely vegetated here. So perhaps that is why, but I don't know for sure. How good is that? Anyway, I just thought I'd stop and show you something very nice. It's always good to see waterbuck around. They're one of the rarer kind of antelope that we get here. You know, they're not completely rare. It's not like, yeah, I saw a waterbuck when you saw one, but you know, it's good. It's good. It's nice. Ooh, I reckon Tingana might be able to take down a waterbuck that size, maybe. Oh, it's hard to say. I think it'd be one you'd have to see to find out. I haven't heard of him taking down waterbuck, but then again, I have only known him for a few months, so I'm not sure. Well, I shall keep on moving. Hopefully pick up on a track soon. I'll send you back to Tristan to teach you a little bit more about elephants.
Well, good luck, Pat. I got an update that Tingana was around, and so hopefully you'll be able to find him somewhere on our southern boundary. But basically, essentially, we were still looking at the skull, and we're now looking at pretty much the sort of teeth area of this particular elephant. And so we started out kind of on the tusk end, and we've come along into the teeth and then into this back end. Now, normally we talk about teeth in elephants and how they have 6 sets, and these 6 sets obviously last for a certain period of time, and once they're worn down, that's the end of it. And it's often very difficult to explain this as to how this process works. But we're going to take you from the right at the back end. Now, you'll see in this cavity in here that's broken away, I've pulled out all the fresh little teeth that have still yet to come down. So these are nice and long, and you can see how they've kind of on this track that will move from this top part here, and they'll slowly but surely push through. If you look on the bottom side of the skull, here they are. These are the exact teeth that I have loosened. So they've come out, and these will be the ones that will push through and will eventually come down to form this massive block of teeth that you see here. And what will happen is, as you see in the front here, you see how they're wearing down and they're getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and that makes it very difficult for the elephant to chew. And so as they get shorter, these get pushed out. So this is a set that's right in front. You can see this is independent of this block basically. So here is a set, the last of which from the what looks like the 3rd or 4th set. This would be the 5th set, and these would be the last ones right at the back. And basically these will be pushed out, and you can see the difference in terms of size. If I put them here in those front ones, look at how much shorter this is than these. So as these wear from feeding on rough vegetation like bark and roots and those kind of things, so the tooth wears right down, and then it kind of gets pushed, like I say, out and falls out the front, and then this set comes through, and the next set, like a set of train tracks, will move forward. Unfortunately for elephants, though, as you can see inside there, is that the set runs out. So actually this is the 5th set. The 6th set was the ones that I pulled out, and that is kind of finished. And so this, once the 6th set runs through, the elephant does not produce any more teeth whatsoever. And those teeth, unfortunately, mean that it starts to starve and starts to have a very tricky time. Now, we were talking earlier about certain elephants that we have in this area, and there's an elephant that we do have that has a very specific set of tusks. Now, this is the tusk kind of area over here, so there would have been a section that would have kind of closed this over. You can see hyenas have been eating this, and inside there is where the tusk goes. Now, normally we don't see the rooting edge of the tusk. We always see just the kind of tips that stick out. So giving you a hypothetical kind of area, the tusk would probably be about here with flesh and all kinds of other things. This would be where the lip kind of attaches to the tusk. So we would see the tusk from this area going forward, and the rest of that goes all the way inside there and is attached almost up near where the eye is. And so when we talk about tusk breaking or shifting or moving or anything like that, and we talk about why they don't grow back, if a tusk breaks anywhere in this section, too much of the root area is damaged for that tusk to then grow back, and so that's when you'll see what it looks like elephants without tusks. Now, elephants that have had no tusks whatsoever, this section here is not really hugely developed at all. It almost seems as though this kind of place that holds the tusk, the bone around it, is a much smaller circumference, and therefore doesn't actually have that sort of same shape, and it doesn't have that bulge on the side. The tuskless elephants tend to have a much flattered view of what's going on. But I was saying that basically we have an elephant that's very famous because of her tusks, and her name is Fang. So I want you to take a look at just how we get to know her and her herd that she surrounds herself with. Right, now you'll see that is Fang, that is her left side, which is not her famous side, and you'll see through the bush that there is a tusk that is poking downwards. So there we go, we can see it like that. So we know her immediately when you see her. This backward facing tusk is very, very, very distinct. So if you can just pause it there for me, Emma. So she go back a little bit just so we can see that back tusk. So you can see that that tusk is kind of growing back and towards her her right leg. It's eventually going to be a little bit of an issue because that tusk is not being used nearly as much as her tusk on her left side of her body. If you see, just can we roll it back a little bit further, just when she's more side on. There we go. So there we go. So you can see the tusk on the left, very short in comparison, and that will be her working tusk. That's the tusk that she is constantly going to be using to break bark off trees, pick up roots, break any branches, those kind of things. And so that tusk is constantly being worn and shortened, whereas this right tusk that faces backwards is going to be very difficult for her to use that for anything other than maybe if she tried to use it like a pick, or I don't know how she would be able to do it, but she doesn't use that nearly as much. And so that tusk is just growing without being used, and therefore you can see how much longer it is already. And I say it's eventually going to be an issue. It'll eventually start to grow. Unless it starts to grow outside of her body, it's going to grow towards her legs, and it could eventually kind of cause a bit of irritation there. But maybe at that point she'll try and wear it down and rub it, and it will break or something like that. But that tusk and why it's like that is very tricky to know. It could just be a genetic kind of thing. Oh, she looks like she's having the most fun, isn't she? Just scratching her ear and really having a good time after a good mud wallow. So that's all just pest control that she's doing, and this is parts of her herd that she's got. But that right tusk probably could have shifted when she was very early on in age and kind of been twisted, but I think more it's a genetic kind of defect. Now, can we pause there quickly? Now, this particular elephant that you see here is an elephant that is often another one that is easily identifiable within the herd. She has a slightly different shaped set of tusks to a lot of the other elephants we see here in the Kruger Park area. She's got very straight, very narrow tusks. They remind me a lot of the East African elephants, and in fact even the forest ellies that we see here in Africa. So there's much straighter sort of tusks that she's got, and she's a nice one, and often actually find her splitting off a little bit from the herd. I've seen her on her own, which is quite interesting, and then there's two little hooligans that are in front. And the thing about Fang's herd, we can carry on playing, Emma. The thing about Fang's herd is that they are huge. It's a very big herd. The last time I saw them was so long ago. Oh no, little baby took a tumble, unfortunately. So there's a little slow-mo replay of shame. I'm sure that baby doesn't want to see that. It's almost like Taylor falling in the mud. We can call that little baby elephant Taylor, but basically that little one is all over the place, and that's little baby Ellie's. And so this herd is a large herd. You'll see that they love coming down to the dams and swimming and spending a lot of time playing around in water. And the fact that we've got water in Gowrie Dam again is a really good kind of omen for Fang to start returning and spending time. She loves swimming around with her herd, and like I say, the last time I saw it, in fact this sighting here, which we can pause quickly now if you can for me, you can see what I was talking about at the size of her herd. Her herd is probably, I think that day we counted was like 48 or something like that, Ellie's within her grouping. So she's got a really large herd with her, and that's what makes her very cool to spend time with, because not only is she so special in the fact that you can identify her and she's got this crazy tusk, but you've also got this insane amount of other elephants that's all around you, and they are so relaxed. And this sighting, we'll get into a little bit later, was probably rates as one of my most special elephant sightings that I've ever had as a guide. Not only from the behavior that we'll get into a little bit later, just from the actual kind of beauty of what was going on. To have that many elephants walking along through this golden light on quarantine is just a kind of dream kind of sighting for me. In the Mara you see it a lot like this, but for Djuma and for the Sabi Sands you don't get to see this all that often, and these kind of big herds are really, really impressive. And this sighting has got a lot of emotional attachment to it, and one that we'll probably kind of, like I say, get on to a little bit later. But very, very cool elephant. I'm dying to see her again. It's been so long since I've seen her, unfortunately. That's the last time I saw her was in fact that sighting, which was in May 2017. So that gives you an idea of how far we've kind of gone since I've seen her. She has been seen since then. It obviously is just that I haven't been lucky. I think every other presenter has seen her except for me, which is not ideal. Now, Alicia, I'll get into your question shortly, but Rosalind, we just double-checked on your kind of elephant bones number. So 351 apparently is how many they can have, just to give you an answer back on that. Now, Alicia, how long do elephant teeth last? So it depends. I mean, it depends on the set of teeth. So when they are first born, they get tiny little teeth that are very, very short-lived. They only last for the first kind of couple months. Little milk teeth essentially, and then from there the next set is a slightly smaller set, and so they eventually get into a big block that is long like this towards the last kind of 4, 5, 6. So these will last hugely long. They'll last probably, I would imagine, I think the number, I must double check it, but I remember reading that it was something close to about 10 years, I think, for these large blocks like this to wear down. And you can see it's a long process to wear from that to that tiny little thing there. Takes a very, very, very long time. It's a kind of huge sort of process that happens, but amazing to see. And the skull is going to be so interesting to go through over the course of the next few months. I'm glad that we finally got it back. We can thanks Wally for that. But in the meantime, talking about Ellies, it sounds like David up in the Masai Mara has managed to find a herd of his own, which will be very nice to see.
Well done, Tristan. And just to let you know, now I have real things. I have real elephants where I am. As much as this one looks like a fully grown adult who do not have any tusks, that would happen once in a while, and sometimes it's because of some genetic reasons. We have seen certain elephants along the way, they're born without tusks. Some are born with one tusk, and some are born with two, lose one along the way in their lives, and some even lose both of them as they grow old. Well, we're back in the Mara Triangle, and this, I think, could be one of my best sightings ever for elephants. I would say this year still very young, but how beautiful it is to see these elephants near one very close area that we call the marsh area. Loads of them. And as Bungay is the camera operator with me this afternoon, is showing you, and this is so good. As much as, yes, I'm happy that you're enjoying to see them live. Tristan has been doing a pretty good job there, but it's a different ball game to see them in real time, real life, and at the best. The area I'm talking about in the background is the marsh area, and I was saying Bungay is my camera operator today, and what he's doing is to give you an idea of seeing whether you can count how many elephants are here. I counted about 70, and Bungay told me I was wrong. There definitely could be more than 70. Well, 70 is a huge number for Ellis being together. So my thinking is this could be 2, 3, 4 different herds that have come together to feed. There's a particular liking they have in this particular area because of the grass, the softness of the grass. After the rains, it's very lush. And talking of an elephant missing tusks, you can see that one has little crooked tusks. The one on the right, it goes like poop, offside, which again is a genetical thing. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, should you have questions, yes, could be some similar moving to the Mara. And I was saying earlier, should you have any questions, you may send them through #SafariLive on Twitter. And not sure I remember seeing an elephant similar to this in Juma some times back. But again, as you see, her right tusk is moving or has grown like in the opposite direction, which happens like you've seen human beings when we have our dentition or our teeth not coming out where they're meant to be. It will be the same case with these elephants here. I mean, I'm sure you know tusks of elephant are modified teeth, so they could have come out in not the right place. What a beauty to have loads of them in one area just feeding. And because the temperatures have cooled, there's not a lot of flapping going on their ears. The tusks look pretty white after all the cleaning, which happens after all the rain that we have had has cleaned all these tusks of elephants, and they look sparkling white, just like someone came in a brush and just cleaned them. Well, I'm going to stick here a few more minutes and find out if any dynamics might change or a few calves might come out in the open. But let's find out what kind of a bird Jamie Patterson got.
I'm looking at Egyptian geese now. Why would I be looking at Egyptian geese? As you know, Safari Lives is all about our favorite characters. Well, we've certainly become emotionally invested in the well-being of several different clutches of Egyptian geese eggs, and of course the chicks that we've watched them attempt to raise, most often failing to do so, particularly in the case of the Buffelshoek pair. This particular pair of Egyptian geese is the treehouse Egyptian goose pair. They have made this their home for now. Now, sometimes what happens out when we're on safari is that we have so many exciting things to show you that we have to make some very, very difficult decisions. In this particular case, there was a spectacular sighting of wild dogs up in the Mara, but in totally unseen footage before now, we also had an Egyptian goose battle. The tranquil terrain of Chitwa Dam was disturbed by an aggressive disagreement between some Egyptian geese. Their often questionable parenting skills were put to the test, as one of the geese took on a defenseless chick. Like many of us, its fellow put up a fight for the tiny feathered fowl. As the battle continued, with the bashing of wings echoing throughout the confines of the dam, finally, a third Egyptian goose took on the role of referee, determined to make it a fair fight. When the nearby spectators were no longer amused, the referee called it, waving his wing, ending the commotion, and restoring calm to the waterhole. Drama indeed in the world of the Egyptian geese at Chitwa Dam. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was our clip of the week. Something that you don't get to see very often. Usually, Egyptian geese make a vast amount of noise when they see another Egyptian goose close to them, and they sort of go quack, 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 quack. And it's almost deafening when there are as many geese as there are at Chitwa Dam. But you don't really see them fight as seriously as those were fighting that often. Understandably so, in defense of one tiny, fragile little chick, probably being targeted by an adult as a way of removing a little bit of competition, presumably. I don't really have an explanation as to why that goose was behaving in that way, but that was Sydney's absolutely amazing sighting from earlier this week. Very, very interesting. However, we are going to have to love and leave our Egyptian geese. I've just done a little bit of a loop while we wait for our chance to go and see the Nkuhumas. That's the plan from now. So we're going to head right up to the top northwestern corner of Djuma. Oh. So before I actually roll into the dam itself and try and find my way backwards, let's pop back into the tent with Tristan, who is always endlessly entertaining.
Well, we were rambling sweet nothings into its ear and you caught us. No, I'm just joking. Right, I'm looking at different skulls because we're going to take a short break from our Ellies. Oh no, I've destroyed this whole arrangement here. James is going to have somewhat of a fit at some point. Don't tell him. He's still on leave. Don't tell him. He won't know. Anyway, so I was saying we're going to take a break from Ellies for a little bit because this week has been spectacular in many regards. We've had a lot of characters that have kind of appeared, and we've seen a lot of leopard and a lot of lions, and it's been quite epic. And I mean, that sighting of those Egyptian goose is absolutely incredible. I actually want to go and do some research as to whether or not Egyptian geese practice infanticide, and if there are rival males that will kill the little ones in order to try and bring a female back into a mating cycle. So I want to go and have a little look because it seemed like that was what was going on there. But anyway, we'll kind of get into that later. But like I say, it's always nice when after we've seen a lot of our usual characters that we get to see some new ones. And this week we got to see a new character. Well, not just one actually. There was 18 of them, and they were trotting about all over the place at Djuma. Some unexpected visitors made their way onto Djuma this week. In true dog fashion, the Hamilton's pack made quick work of an impala kill. However, some were eager to ask for seconds. Not forgetting a snack for the road, the pack made a move as the sun began to set. Having originated from the eastern side of Kruger Park, the Hamiltons appeared on a mission, searching for a place to settle. We all hope they'll find it within our borders. Well, very, very exciting to have those guys around. Hopefully we're going to see a lot more of them. They actually were seen this morning, I think. Yes, this morning up on Buffelshoek once again, and they've been hanging around a lot in the Buffelshoek, Southern Manuleti and kind of Torchwood areas, and so it looks like they're going to spend time here. It's always a good time for wild dogs at this time, when you just get a little bit of rain, and it's that summer period. Puppies are starting to run with the pack. You start to really kind of see a lot more movement with the dogs, and they tend to then come through a lot more frequently. And at the moment, currently, within the northern sector of the Sabi Sand, it seems like there's 8 different packs. I mean, sorry, not 8, 3 different packs. I was thinking of 8 in my mind because Jamie had 8 this morning. But 3 different packs that are being seen. There was this pack that was seen right far west on the southern side of kind of EP airstrip, and they went off towards Singita, Londolozi side. There was the pack that Jamie had this morning, and then obviously the Hamilton's pack that's also being seen. So really very cool. Gremlins, yes, lots and lots of dogs, amazing. So they had 13 puppies in their breeding season last year. So remember that dogs here in South Africa, they will breed generally from May to June, July, sometimes a little bit further, but very seldom beyond that. And so they had 13 during that season. Funny enough, the dogs in the Mara breed any time of the year. So East African wild dogs tend to breed, it doesn't matter when. It's not like here where there's a very specific season when they breed. But these dogs had 13 puppies. Funny enough, didn't get a chance to count how many of those puppies are still with the pack. Very tricky when you've got 18 dogs all running in different directions. And when they were on the kill, there were 6 that were on a kill that we first initially saw, and then we found the rest of the pack after we went off air, and they were on a different impala kill. And it was a bit tricky because obviously we were doing schools at that time, and we didn't want to be too gruesome with what we were seeing, and so we kind of tried to just censor things a little bit. But I didn't get to count exactly how many. It'll be interesting to see how many of those 13 puppies actually made it into sort of adulthood, if you want to call it that. Good. Wild dogs have, like I say, been both in Mara and Djuma, but we're going to send you back up to Mara. I wonder if David is still sitting with the Mara Fang. I, funnily enough, have seen that exact same herd, and it is absolutely spectacular.
I'm still enjoying my lovely elephants here and have not moved an inch. I just repositioned myself and came round, and I saw this particular cow here whose calf is on her left, and the calf was nursing for a couple of minutes until now, and there's nothing as exciting as seeing a baby elephant nursing while the mother is still feeding. Now that cow looks very big, a very bulging belly. Not sure she is pregnant or not, but anything after 3 or 4 years, a cow could easily conceive and maybe get another baby after another gestation period of about 22 months or 2 years. Mao, good question. Which African country have the largest herd of elephants? That's a very difficult question to answer, in the sense that every country may boast, we have this, we have that. And for example, say Kenya, it puts me in a bit difficult position to explain, because here we are in the Mara Triangle. We border another national park called Serengeti National Park in Tanzania, and we don't know what elephants to call ours or what elephants to call Tanzania's. Tanzania is the country where Serengeti National Park is, and the same elephants, like you see here, sometimes they may go all the way to the Ngorongoro Conservation Area in West Africa. So my guess, Ma, would be maybe Zimbabwe. If not Zimbabwe, maybe Botswana, maybe one of those 2 countries. But we have loads of elephants in most of the African countries, and not sure anybody have specifically counted that this country or these elephants. And look at also Kruger National Park. It has such a wider dispersal area, sometimes going all the way to Mozambique. So unless we had fences in particular area saying this is this national park, this is this game reserve, and these ellies are not going to live here, I don't think anybody has been able to document which country have the largest number of, I would say, elephants. Well, look at that calf there, just playing with the mother. It could be very easier to count the wild dog packs and even know their numbers, because around the Mara area where we are, we have always seen a particular pack of dogs. Wild dogs are rare sighting in the Mara Triangle. Coming across a pack of one at the beginning of this new year was truly a phenomenon. The presence of prey in the wild will occasionally attract unwanted guests. and it was no different for this pack as they fed on a male impala. Wild dogs are efficient and successful predators. They consumed their prey fast, and when the vultures ran out of patience, the wild dogs had had their share. Earlier of how I was excited to see leopards mating at the beginning of 2019, but I think on a similar note I also got very excited to see wild dogs in the Mara, which we see once in a while. It takes us such a long time to see the dogs, again unlike in Juma in Kruger National Park, but this particular morning it was such a feeling to see them, and not only just running around, they had some carcass or they were eating a young male impala. That was pretty exciting to see the three, but they're always very fast. They hunt very quickly, they move very quickly, they eat fast. So unless it's hot during the day, in the mid of the heat of the day, where they would choose to stay under some shade, wild dogs are always mobile, and I'm sure they would not, these elephants here would not be excited to see wild dogs. Look at those two playful youngsters there, and they're definitely surely not fighting, just having a little play for each other, because the adults or the matriarch, wherever she is, she doesn't look very worried by them pushing each other. It's very normal. I would guess they are youngsters, and more so maybe boys. Males have been known to behave like that. So young bulls, and they know at one particular time they should start training how to face off other bigger boys or bigger bulls once they're out of this herd, where they'll be dealing with much stronger males than them. Once they join the bachelor clubs, they'll always have once in a while to go for each other, and especially when they'll be writing or they'll need writing mates to come and mate with the females. Very good. I might be leaving these elephants maybe shortly and move on, look for some other exciting animals, because Pat is also doing the same.
Well, no signs of the Duke as of yet, but what we are seeing is a lot of hyena tracks around this area, and obviously we did just see Corky, so it's made me think that perhaps the den has been moved somewhere down in this southeast area. Now we did check that one hyena den down here with no luck, so perhaps they've moved into Torchwood or maybe even Chitwa. But that is something for another night. I won't check today. We can't check Torchwood today anyway. So Tengana was last seen stationary. He was laying down. So I'm not sure where he may have moved to or what his plans were today. As I said, it was a warmer kind of day today, so I can't imagine he would have moved too far. Hopefully he is still on the property. Well, from one bumble to another, let's go see what Jamie is up to.
The plan is to make our way towards the Nkuhumas. There's space for us there now, so we're just going to head in that direction. We're not far away at all. Now, this morning I counted 11 lions, but they were quite spread out in a thicket. And one of them was one of the Mangeni males. So we've had a lot of transition with the Nkuhumas and a lot of peculiar social dynamics within the pride. For those of you that perhaps haven't kept up with the goings-on, they were joined by two males from the Mangeni pride, so two male lions who were very young, badly infested with mange. Now, I saw one of them today. He's looking heaps better. He really does. He's still thin. There's a lot of muscle wastage, but he's looking a lot better. But the pride has sort of been split away. One of the lionesses taking the young Nkuhuma male separate from the rest of the pride, and then the others sort of coming and going. Obviously the mating with the evokers, which is causing shifts in their dynamics as well. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out once things settle. The Nkuhumas are going to start having cubs, and the males are going to start distributing and moving off. Dispersing was the word that I was looking for. Now, it is of course an elephant-themed Safari Lives. David's been doing a marvelous job up in the Masai Mara, a place close to my heart. Let's go have a look at a little baby elephant.
Decide to be a bit flat and not do much. I've never compared lions to elephants, and I've always said many a times that elephants are my favorite animals. Initially I had said I'll be moving on to look for something else, but when I saw this little calf here, I was like, no, I'm not going anywhere, because this baby is still learning how to eat. Anything 4 to 6 months, elephant calves will start eating some green stuff, be it grass, be it some little shrubs, and I think this is exactly what she is practicing to do. And anything she'll catch using her trunk, she'll either throw it in the mouth, maybe like it, if she doesn't, spit it, and all this learning. See what she did there? How sweet is that, eh? So she's using her feet to uproot what could be difficult. And there's one bigger calf there that's just being so playful and pushing her around. Oops. This could be the two boys that I think I saw earlier. Well, the two youngsters that I saw playing earlier. That's why I usually say elephants are pretty exciting to watch. Very unusual to see any of them burrowing. There's one there that doesn't seem to have a tail there. The base of the tail seems a little swollen, but definitely she is missing a tail. Like the one we saw earlier without tusks, then we saw one with one tusk, then we saw another one with a crooked tusk. Now this one doesn't have a tail altogether. Happens once in a while. And you can just hear them uprooting the grass, because of what they have done. They have come so close to where we are. How lovely just to see them munching the grass, uprooting the grass. And with elephants you can always have a story from morning, afternoon to evening. And Tristan, I'm sure he loves talking about elephants' bones too.
Indeed they do. Ellies do often give us a story, and much like this poor bull that had the most horrific injuries when he was injured and unfortunately succumbed to that. And we had a time where, I was mentioning it earlier, that we saw Fang in that herd, and she definitely was in quite a lot of discomfort. She wasn't herself at all, and it was a really kind of intriguing look into an elephant's life and what can sometimes happen to these guys. And undoubtedly, like I said earlier, it was probably the sighting of my kind of career in terms of an elephant behavior. It's not something that you're going to see many times at all. And I'm talking about Fang's miscarriage, and we actually have a clip about it, and so we're going to go through kind of what happened that day. Again, it's been something that we've discussed a few times, but we're going to basically go through it. And so as you can see here, Fang is lying down, and when we first got to the sighting, everything about it was that she was kind of, I mean, at first we just thought she was being, you know, relaxed and tired and playing in the mud and lying down and dust bathing, and then it started to very quickly realize something was wrong. And this moment here, and you can just pause it here for me, you can see the rest of the herd in the background. They started to move off. They started to shift off quarantine to go and feed. So they all started to depart and leave her, and she started to stay back. And it was here that we then started to notice that something wasn't right. You can see already in her posture now, her back legs were bending all the time, and between her legs there, I don't know if you can see it quite nicely, it almost looks like she's a male. So if you had seen this from behind, you might have thought this was a male that was in must, but it's not. It's this female. She was dribbling quite heavily from her genital area, and there was all this liquid that was running down the inside of her legs, and it quickly became apparent that something wasn't right with her. And we can roll it on, and you'll be able to see how her behavior then started to happen. She started to stand for long periods in the same place. You could actually see her entire body. There was huge contractions within her stomach area. Here you go, see this? Now if you watch these closely, she gets quite agitated. She was dust bathing, and she was kind of up and down and up and down and up and down. And I remember she sat in this spot for probably close to about 35-40 minutes, where she would just do this. She would bathe with sand, then she would put her trunk up, she would sniff, and you can see there's motions that are happening there. And she sat like this, and you can pause it there for me, Emma, and you can see she would roll on her side, and this stomach would go back and forth, and she sat like this, and it was really kind of concerning to watch her roll and move in this way. And you kind of thought to, a lot of the time of this, initially I was worried that, I was hoping that there hadn't been a problem with this miscarriage and that she was actually just going to keel over and die, especially when she was rolling like that. It was quite a traumatic kind of thing to go through. And so she carried on rolling, and we can carry it forward, and she lay down like this, and there was just this constant kind of, you could see there was this fight that she was having within herself, and she would stretch out and she would move. And initially we thought, we were saying that miscarriage because we had actually found bits of afterbirth during that period. And then she kind of moved off and caught up with the rest of the herd, and a young bull in particular was completely intrigued by this whole thing. He didn't understand. You can see him, this is him right next to the vehicle, and he was smelling the sand, he was throwing sand on himself and following her around. And we just stopped there because this moment was something that I will never forget. The sun was kind of setting, and you can see that there are two very large elephants. Now Fang is not small. Short Trunk is a much smaller animal than what Fang is, and this bull over here is probably, I would say, easily 15 years old, and big elephants. I mean, you can see that's Rusty, and as Rusty is being dwarfed by these Ellies. And at that stage, what they were doing was that she was trying to actually use us almost as a barrier to this bull. This bull kept following her around, and she didn't enjoy it at all, and she was in discomfort, and she was leaking this fluid and contracting, and you could see she was not happy at all. And so she kept walking around the car, and this bull would be on one side and she'd be on the other side, and they would do this roundabout game, and eventually the bull would catch up, and then she would change direction. And it was quite something to sit in the middle of this and have an elephant at some points less than, I would say, half a meter from the vehicle, and a big elephant like this walking around. You can see she would come around like this, and then she'd go around the back of the vehicle, and you can see the rest of the herd is in the background. And I suspect what was happening during this is that there was a lot of communication that was happening. She was also kind of secreting all kinds of fluids that bull must have been incredibly interested in. And then you saw it kind of went into the night time, and she still was struggling. There was fluid constantly coming out, and we really didn't know what was the sort of morning was going to hold. We just watched her in disbelief really as this whole thing played out. And it was, like I say, one of those sightings that I will never ever forget. This is right towards the end when the bull came back again, and she was right by our vehicle, and kind of, you can see she's doesn't really want him there, but unfortunately, being slightly smaller, she kind of is a little bit more submissive and probably not feeling her absolute best, and there's her kind of moving off. But it was, like I say, I still get a kind of emotional about it in some ways. It's difficult not to. You see these kind of sightings, and we invest a lot of time in spending with animals and certain individuals, and at that point we had seen Fang quite a bit, and to watch an elephant in clear distress is never an easy thing. It's difficult because we're obviously trying to communicate what we're seeing to you guys, but at the same time there's an emotional roller coaster that you go through. And then I remember that sighting, from sheer joy of all these elephants playing in mud and things like that, to this complete concern over this elephant that clearly was not doing very well, and then the worry of what was going to happen to her overnight, because obviously there can be complications. You don't know what's happening inside her body. Was there internal bleeding? Was there something that was really not right? And it was a worrying time. And she then, the next morning, walked southwest and crossed out of our area. And we tracked her that morning because I was actually on walk, and remember finding bits of afterbirth that was kind of fallen down on the road and various other things. And it was a huge worry. And eventually she was then seen, and everything was okay. But it was a tough time. And so, for me, I don't know quite what the word is for it. I mean, it was both sad, epic, and intriguing at the same time. But I'd like to know from you guys maybe what you think is one word is how you describe that whole experience. Some of you that watched it, and maybe some of you that have just watched this for the first time and hearing the story, how you would have felt to have been in that situation, watching this elephant going through this experience, and having her kind of keep coming to the car and sit within a meter of where you are. It really was quite an intriguing thing. So I'd like to hear from you guys as to what you think of all of that. Right, now I'm going to carry on with elephants for the day and try and kind of get over that and try and lift the mood slightly. In the meantime, though, Pat seems to be having a spotty day, but not of the cat kind. Once again found some spots for you to see.
Well, what started out to look like a leopard drive has turned very hyena-y. So we have caught back up with the matriarch of the Juma clan, Corky, here, and she has just come off-road a little bit, so we thought we'd follow her. We thought she might take us either to the den or perhaps to a kill. She was sniffing the air a lot. The wind is blowing kind of directly onto us right now, and she was sniffing in the opposite direction from what she's facing. So there's something that's definitely interested her, but obviously just not enough. All I can smell right now is wild aniseed. I'm definitely not picking up on whatever Corky is picking up on, but I can tell you it's a delicious smell. I love it this time of year. Smelling that fresh aniseedy smell, it's just making my mouth water a little bit right now. So Corky, where's your den, huh? Where have you moved to? Where have you taken little Plonky? For anyone who doesn't know, Corky does have a cub named Plonk. Chris, yes, Corky does look very done. Put a thermometer in her because she's done. Yeah. She definitely did seem interested in whatever she was smelling, but has since just completely given it up. The wind has almost completely dropped off now as well, though. And she goes back to peacefully resting. She also looked quite full. I don't think that she was going to go hunt or possibly even scavenge. She looks like she has recently eaten, and we know that she has definitely recently bathed. We saw that earlier. Zephyr, that's actually a really good thought and a really good question. I definitely do think that could have had something to do with it. We have obviously seen a lot of cats this week, not just lions, but also leopards as well. So there's been a lot of density of cats in Juma, and this may make the hyena feel a bit uneasy and move. That is the primary reason usually for moving. It's a good predator avoidance technique. I'm sure if a lion or even a leopard got around hyena cubs, especially undefended, I don't think it's going to end very well at all. Speaking of lions, we can go back over to Jamie, who has some in the exact same position.
I don't just have some lions in the same position, I actually have a carpet of very sleeping kahumas spread out in the shade of what's known as a guari bush, which is a wonderful, wonderful tree when it comes to shade giving because it's evergreen and it helps. It's got very dense leaves, so it really provides a plenty of shade for the lions beneath it. So apparently I can't count because I only count 10 lions here. So either I got confused this morning because I only have 10 fingers and it gets more complicated once you go past 10, or there's one sleeping up somewhere else. I'm not 100% sure, but I think this is all of them gathered together and I can only count 10. So what that means, if we get into the meat of it, is that we've got one Mangeni male, one Talamati male, and the rest are Nkuhumas, which means we're missing 3, and we've accounted for 2 of them mating with the Avoca males. So it's just one Nkuhuma that is unaccounted for, which is not bad. We're at least starting to get to the point where things are stabilizing, and as it happens, the Nkuhumas have entered the new year somewhat more relaxed than they were at the end of last year. Mario says that this is a lion sleepover. It is. You know, it's nice to see, and I can't help but have a real soft spot for this particular male, is just how close the Mangeni male's been allowed to sleep with the rest of the pride. When I first moved back to Juma from the Mara, he was always, or both of them, were always on the outskirts of the pride, and if they dared to get any closer than that, they were immediately growled at. And now it seems as though they are not quite fully accepted as a member of the pride, but he certainly is allowed far more freedom these days, and looking so much better. Those scars have healed up. I spoke about this morning. Yes, he's thin. We know he's thin, but that's going to just take time. Loads better. So, I think you'll all agree that 2019 is going to be a good year for the Nkuhumas, and it started off on a wonderful note. The Nkuhumas brought in the new year with some rest and relaxation. With characters coming in from all sides, the pride sniffed around, unsure but alert. It was surprising to see a lone lioness from the pride. Crisscrossing along the boundary, calling. Between the evokers and the remainder of her pride, neither seemed ready to reply. I've been looking for that particular lioness. I don't know whether or not she's with the pride or if she's been snatched up by the third evoker male. So you noticed in that particular sighting that she had an injury under her eye that was seeping, which should make her quite clear to us, or quite obvious to us, provided of course the lions get up so that we can see the right side of their faces. Ah, brilliant, absolutely wonderful. Well done, Patrick. A round of applause. He's found his leopard.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Look who decided to show up. My boy, my little chief, he's here. I'm so excited right now. And we have a very complicated situation. Corky is still here on the scene, and Hosanna seems to be stalking around her. I'm not sure whether it's out of fear. He's very, very cautious though. I wonder what he is up to. What made him come over here? Oh, and Corky's just smelt something. Her head's pricked up. And she's decided to roll onto her side. Oh, now he's getting very close. Slowly making his way forward. He can't be hunting her, can he? He's moving very close. Wow, I honestly don't know what's going to happen here. This is a strange situation. We often see hyenas approaching leopards, but rarely leopards approaching hyenas, especially when there isn't any food around. The good news, it may very well just be curiosity. We do know that Hosanna is a very curious cat and very playful and surprisingly, well not surprisingly, but just very mellow around humans. So perhaps it's the same with other animals, but he's very close now. He's within 10 meters. What is going on? Yes, Crystal, maybe he does want his money back. Perhaps Corky took something of his that she shouldn't have. He is so close to her right now. I can't believe this. Look at that. There is literally about 5 meters or 15 feet between the two. What an incredible situation. And now he's just sitting there. Corky is not even the slightest bit aware. Paula here is getting so close. What is happening? I'm sorry everyone, I'm really just trying to rack my brain as to what he's doing. He must just be curious. Rian is saying, oh no, Hasana, don't do it. Well, I'm not sure if he's actually in attack mode. He looks very relaxed right now. His tail's down and flat. And he's just staring. Oh, now Corky's moved a head up, but still unaware. Can you see that ear twitching a little bit? Tears would back Corky in this fight. Wow, that's a strong call. I honestly think, I don't think this, if they were to fight, it would be to the death. Both of them wouldn't want to risk injury. But yeah, it would be a very good fight. Oh, he's moving closer now. We don't want them to attack one another, that's for sure. Oh, and here we go. Spotted. You've been sprung, boy. And a bit of a yawn, a bit of a clean. And he's going back. He is a silly sausage, Emma. A very silly sausage. Hours of entertainment with this young one. And now... Wow, and... just before we were debating about who would win in this fight, but seeing Corky next to Hosanna, it's crazy to see just how big Corky actually looks when compared to Hosanna. I never actually realised that. Seeing the two close together now, Corky is a lot more solid and actually seems to stand almost just about at the same height. I'm just going to creep around so we can get a better view of Hosanna. How cool is this? Cannot believe it. What a sighting. So Corky's still smelling the air. There's obviously something on her nostrils and on her mind. And now the two are just going to relax in the same vicinity as one another. So we've got Corky here, and then Hosanna is just hidden a little bit behind a log on the left here. You can see just through there. Now what are you going to do? Hey? You've come, you've said hello. Now you're going to walk away. Alright, I'm just going to move around now. As much as I love Corky, I think I'm going to decide to stay with Hosanna because it's been so long since I've seen my little chief. So long. And I'm absolutely stoked. And I can't believe it. He came to us. Well, he came to Corky. I don't know what was running through his head when he came over. But Craig was just sitting here and I heard him laugh. I thought, what's happened, Craig? And there was Hosanna right next to us. Unbelievable. He's just off to our right here. Looks like there's a bit of a two-track around here, so I'm just going to come around. That was crazy. That was really crazy, Emma. Oregon, yes, I agree. Hosanna is always looking for friends. He's got such a really quirky personality, but he just seems to, I don't know, I can't describe it. He seems to want to know things. I don't know. Very interesting cat. Very interesting sighting. I'm going to catch my breath and send you back over to Tristan.
Pat, I'm sure you need to catch your breath, and that's typical Hosanna, to show up when you're watching something else and to be intrigued by the things. Now, you might notice that I've got a wild-eyed leopard skull, and that's because we saw our wild-eyed leopard during the course of this week. It was so nice to catch up with Hukumuri once again. He's such a character, that cat, and I thoroughly enjoyed actually following him around. He took us through the most ridiculous amount of bush, but it was such a fun experience just kind of seeing him do things, and we've obviously caught up with him first thing in the morning, and he was, well, waiting very patiently. The wild-eyed warthog killer is once again making himself comfortable in the Duke's territory, putting his unusually large tongue to good use. Hukumuri remained alert for both approaching foe and food. Sticking to his skill set, he decided on his next meal. However, it was clear that it was not going to be fast food. So unfortunately for him, he didn't find anything, and then that afternoon he unfortunately also didn't get much at all. But it was really nice to spend time with him. It seems as though literally every leopard possible has been kind of coming through. It's just Shadulu now that needs to bring a little cubbies across, and then we'll have seen most of them already this year, which is really, really, very, very cool. And Hukumuri makes me laugh. I must be honest, I think calling him Gene, I see some of you call him Gene Simmons of leopards, and I always giggle at that because his tongue is ridiculous. It kind of just hangs out, and the afternoon when we were following him, he was walking through the bush, and his tongue was kind of abnormally long once again, and was just hanging as he was walking. He wasn't even panting or anything like that. He was just walking around with his tongue kind of sticking out, and for some random reason he reminds me a bit of a spoonbill at times when he walks around like that. I know it's funny to say. I actually give him a lot of trouble, but it's in an affectionate way. It's much like Brent in many respects, is that I give him a lot of trouble too, but you know, it's all in jest, and I actually really do like Hukumuri. I think he's quite cool. There's something about him that is very intriguing, and it's all these kind of comical little quirks that he's got, much like Hosanna in many respects, that kind of keeps you entertained when you watch him. And I'm so glad that Hosanna has come back towards Juma. That really has made my day, because we left him this morning slowly mobile westwards along Gari Main, and I was hoping that he was not going to turn south into Chitwa or Little Gari, and he's done exactly what we needed him to do, and he's walked westwards, and so he's hopefully going to be coming back home. Now, we're sitting in the tent at the moment, and I'm a bit kind of perturbed by some sounds that I'm hearing. Now, at this stage I can see a few impalas, which is great news, because there's some impalas out here that are hopefully going to warn us as to what's going on. So the impalas are just sort of out in that area, but kind of to my left hand side and towards this section, all I can hear is the low grumblings of those lions that are mating. So they're somewhere around here. Hopefully they're not going to make it towards the tent, because it'll be an intriguing kind of experience to try and get out of this tent with that one male who's as kind of grumpy as he can be. And Emma's saying, am I sure it's not Senzo's stomach? No, I'm not sure about that. Senzo, are you hungry, Senzo? No, Senzo's shaking his head. He's not hungry. I'm not that hungry either, so it must be the lions that are talking to each other. Anyway, talking about lions, Jamie was with them earlier, but she's now with the Nkuhuma Pride, and I think they are having a big nap.
Don't worry, Trist. If necessary, we'll come protect you from the big scary lions round the tent. Although it's still light enough for Tristan to be absolutely fine exactly where he is. Very big difference between walking or being around lions on foot during the day, and then of course after dark. One of the lionesses at the back, there's one grooming herself, and then there's one to the right of her. She's just spotted a herd of impala that you unfortunately, or Seb unfortunately, can't show you, because they are right behind me, directly behind me, and there's another vehicle between us and them. But the lions have spotted them, or at least one lioness has. They are lazing about, but they're not 100% asleep. They're not what I would describe as flat cats. There's a lot of movement. There's a lot of yawning, stirring, shifting their paws around, grooming. All of those are signs that they are steadily waking up. It takes a while, though, the process of the whole pride actually waking up. And what usually happens is one gets up, has a jolly good groom, a big yawn, a few stretches, another big yawn, another groom, and then eventually at some point she'll decide to start moving, at which point the entire pride one by one will get up, and then she'll lie down at about 10 meters away, and they'll all go back to sleep. And they'll repeat that process every few minutes until eventually they are wide awake. And I think those of you who are not morning people will probably relate to that process. You know, when you get up and you brush your teeth and get dressed and then sit on the bed and stare at the wall for a little while in a completely blank haze? It's kind of like that. Oh, do I have to? Julie, there you go. Julie's on the same page as I am. She knows exactly what I'm saying. Sometimes that process takes a little bit of time. Well, most of the time I'm a morning person. I spring out of bed, but by 9 o'clock at night I'm completely dead to the world. But I do know lots of people for whom mornings are a bit of a struggle. So while our nkuhumas carry on the process of their equivalent of an early morning wake-up in order to go and find themselves some food, let us travel all the way across the African continent to join David.
Must need to move, and I think that's one of the largest prides of lions in Juma, because in this area we have a bigger pride than that. But in the meantime, up there we got a bird of prey, we got some sort of raptor, and I'll be requesting you, as I don't know how good the lighting looks on the screen, I would for once ask you this year. This year I have not tested all the viewers on IDing our birds, so I'll just give you two clues. Number one, it is an eagle, and then number two, it is a snake eagle. I think that's very good to give you clues. So number one, it's an eagle, and number two is a snake eagle. I'd be more than happy if you could tell me what eagle that is. Hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. Now, talking of the nkuhumas, which is one of the, I would say, large prides that I remember, being the largest pride I know in Juma, in the Mara we have another bigger pride just like the nkuhumas called the Olololos. In the Mara Triangle, Ololol pride were resting on the scenic Ololol escarpment, which gave them their name. Apparently, they enjoy the strength of their massive numbers. The young sabo adults are growing fast, and in a few months, the males will leave to establish their own territory or join other coalition males elsewhere. The Kichwa males will remind the young sabo adults not to get comfortable, because the big boys are still a force to reckon with. But for now, the young sabo adult males will roam this vast Ololol territory until it is time for their departure. Welcome back live, and as you just saw of that particular pride called the Olololos, in the Mara Triangle we got so many prides of lions. But this particular one here, it is the largest. When we talk of the Mara Triangle, we are talking of a game reserve that have like 3 sides of a triangle. And Elaine and Caroline, very well done. I think you got it right, and that's a black-chested eagle. Very well done. You're the first one to give me the answer, and absolutely you have it correct. And you take the day. High five from me, and Happy New Year. So talking of the Olololos, the largest pride we have in the Mara Triangle. We got loads of prides in the Mara, but that particular pride, when they're together, they're about 16, and being 16, they have that one big advantage. They can tackle any animal they would be able, or they would want to bring down. We have been having the migration. The migration is gone at the moment. So what these lions are doing here, and especially the Olololos, is to hunt for bigger prey. And until maybe next year, when the wildebeest will come back, they'll keep hunting buffaloes. Sometimes they might even go for giraffes, because they are huge. And as I said, one advantage they got, they can be able to ambush or go around any big prey. Occasionally also, they go for elands, and elands are also equally big animals. It's a little bird there. Bungay, no, she can get it. Oops, just flew away. It's out there in flight. But that was a grey-backed shrike. It was a grey-backed shrike. And she just went and landed on a bush. Hopefully we're going to catch up with her now. Hello there, don't go away. We need to see you. And how is that, Bungay? Do you think you can see her from there? It's a grey-backed shrike. And you've got lots of birds making noise now. Spoffles, francolins. You can hear them in the background there. It's the grey-backed shrike. But the call we had earlier was from some francolins. Well, as we take you back to South Africa, to Tristan, who wants to talk of something bigger than this shrike here, or than this physical bird here.
Well, this is not grey and bigger, but this right here is what attracts something that is grey and very big, and particularly one individual that is very, very naughty that comes around here. This is a marula fruit, and shortly these will be coming out. In fact, I found this one in the car park. Watch, behave yourself, stop it coming undone. Found this in the car park just now, and I thought, well, this would be a good time to talk about it. And so basically what's happening is these are developing on the trees at the moment. So it is a marula fruit that you see right there. Now this is a green one. This is not one that you would want to eat, and not one that the ellies would want to eat either. But it shows that they are developing slowly. I know some of you have asked whether or not the marulas are on their way. So this gives you an idea of some of them that are developing. And essentially what's happening is this is going to grow. It's going to eventually get a lot larger than this. This is probably, I would say, about 60 to 70% of the size of when they go ripe. It will then start to turn a yellow color, and often they fall just before that yellowing starts, and they land on the ground. And as they start turning yellow on the ground, the elephants come and hoover them up, and particularly bull elephants. And so at the end of this month, going into probably mid-Feb, is where they really start to come down in their droves, and into then a little bit into March. But that attracts all kinds of bull elephants. And I was saying there's one cheeky bull in particular that comes through, and we're going to introduce you to him shortly. So there he goes, walking down the road with absolute swagger as he does, and it is of course none other than Daryl. Now, Daryl is an interesting fella. Daryl has got a bell-shaped hole in his ear. That's the way that you can ID him. He also loves a good scratch, and he loves to hang around quarantine. You can see that pretty much all of this is on quarantine, and he hangs around here just going from marula tree to marula tree to marula tree to marula tree, and slowly but surely just eats his way silly. And he is a character, and he's known not only up here in the northern Sabi Sands, he is known from here all the way down to Sabi in the south. And it's an interesting kind of thing, and we can just kind of pause it there as he kind of reaches up, because that's something that Daryl does quite regularly, is Daryl will kind of get up like that. And that particular tree is not a marula, that's a little cluster leaf, but he'll often grab the marulas like that, and then he yanks on them and all the marulas start to fall. And I was saying he's known all the way. At the moment he's currently down in Sabi area. That's the last update I got about him. But I have personally seen Daryl here at Djuma. I've seen him at Simambili. I've seen him in front of Arathusa. I've seen him at Elephant Plains. Seen him at Chitwa. Seen him on Little Gowrie. Seen him on Hoffman's vessels. Singita, the entire part along the river there. Seen him on Lion Sands. And so he just roams around all over the place causing trouble. And invariably somewhere near a camp is where Daryl likes to go. Daryl loves to come into the camps and cause nonsense, basically, is the only way I can describe it. He is a naughty fella, and he likes to kind of come in and eat off all the vegetation that kind of grows around. But he's a really cool elephant, and it was Taylor's absolute favorite elephant, and I know why. Is because of his kind of ability to entertain a lot of the time. And there we go, there's the marulas that I was talking about, hoovering them up. This is not Daryl, this particular elephant here, but he's a little bit larger than that one. But it was just to give you an example of how they actually feed. And there he kind of is at a beautiful sunset. But I was saying to you that he's got a very kind of big bell-shaped hole in his ear. It was tricky to kind of see it, but essentially if I draw, I mean, this is very rough, guys, you're going to have to just excuse me, but if essentially this is the ear that kind of comes up, and this is his face, he's got essentially a bell that kind of does that in his ear. So it's like I mean, it's not a very good bell, is it? That's kind of, and that is a hole that he's got in his ear like that. So that's, if you want to be able to identify Daryl, that's the easiest way to do it. And essentially he kind of moves around, and that's exactly what happens with big bull elephants. Is they're not animals that are territorial like lions and leopard. They are home range animals, and so they'll move a lot, and food sources like marulas are key to their movement patterns and where they will head during the course of their lifetime. And he's obviously found that the marula belt that forms the Sabi Sands is an incredible part of the world for food and water, and so he spends all his time really in this area. Now, somebody else that spends a lot of time in this area is not Pat, but Hosanna, and I think he's still following the little chief as he roams around Djuma.
Bad news, everyone. Hosanna has given us the slip. We were following him, fighting tooth and nail. As you can see through here, it is very thick and he's gone down into the actual drainage line there. So there's no real way to get in there, unfortunately, and we just don't have enough time left to go around and find him. But we got him, and that is the main thing. Well, very, very happy after my first ever Safari Lives. Let's send you back over to Jamie.
Well, Pat, I feel as though you can give yourself a jolly good pat on the back. Ha 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 ha. No, really, I'm very proud of Patrick, and I'm very glad that he managed to find Hosanna. So, a roundup of the 30th episode of Safari Lives. We had the wonderful elephant chat, Hosanna, as found by Patrick, along with Corky. He did a brilliant job this afternoon. And of course, right now, Juma overfloweth with lions in various places, which is an absolute joy. However, that does bring us to the end of this Safari Lives. So what that means is that you must join us next week. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a joy as always. And we will see you either tomorrow or next week for the 31st episodes. Can you believe it?